Hi everyone. My name is Stijn Depril, and I'm here today to talk to you about building your digital foundation for a digital business success. And to be honest, this is a quite extensive presentation, and we will walk through it in some sort of, I think, 30 to 45 minutes. And maybe we should start with what our objectives are of our customers. If we're all partners in the room, of our customers in these days, I would say. And if I see what's happening these days, that we need to anticipate, or our customers need to anticipate in different waves, I would say. They need to anticipate in to meet the needs of their customers, which are completely different of their employees. They need to optimize their operations and try to increase the way they go to market. They need to go faster to market. If I look at applications that are being launched every minute of the day, this is the velocity or the speed, the time to market that we see today. And of course, with the speed, potential hiccups in security might come along, and we need to make sure that we keep secure at all times, that we keep basically our crown jewels safe within our company or in our customer's company. So what we actually want to do is we need to rapidly deliver customer and employee value through applications. And the key to that is a digital business success. And I would like to take you to some of the challenges that we see today with our customers. And if I would go to the next slide, and we see what we see today is that we really have different teams specialized in something. For example, we have a data center team, but in that data center team, we definitely have a networking security. Potentially, they are even split up. We have a server team, we have a virtualization team, storage team. You can name the application team. So we have all those different teams, and the processes that we've built around those teams are most of the time ticket driven. Everybody needs to ask through a ticket to get something, right? And if I look back to the challenge that we have today, that's of course a potential hiccup. Technical debt in existing technologies. We are moving very fast through different solutions, but how do we keep up with all the technical knowledge? Skill gaps, that's the same thing around with the technical debt. And then location constrained workspaces. If COVID learned us something, it is that we can work basically from anywhere. So location constraints in the workspace is something that is very difficult to keep as it is today's. And of course, then we have applications, and these applications, if we see what the traditional applications are, they have a big attack surface, potentially even broadening because of the different APIs that we use now to get basically into the applications. Now, if I look at today and what the goal is, the goal of this is that we have the siloed teams, that we move them into some sort of collaboration world, where we see the development people, the operations people, and the different line of businesses being more collaborative and work together with each other. Ticket driven, if something needs to be asked, and we do it through a ticket, there is one person that gets very frustrated, well, more persons, but there is specifically one that is getting very frustrated out of the tickets as a developer. Because if they need to ask for a firewall, for example, to open a port, somebody in the team needs to do it, but it takes a while. And that from that moment on, he can't continue with testing, for example, to the outbound world to see if his application is being okay at that moment. Technical depth and maximum ROI from existing technology. We need to make sure that our customers get the most out of their existing technology, and that we get the best installation possible for the current technology that we have. Skill gaps, if we see that, we want to leverage new technology with the people you have. Of course, that's potentially not possible because some of the people do have a lifetime of knowledge being built up through, for example, a certain vendor. And of course, at this moment, that vendor is shifting their focus. For example, talking about software-defined networking, for example, there are multiple players out there that can give you software-defined networking. Of course, we need to have the people that are moving from the one end of the spectrum to the other end without actually harming what's happening today. And of course, then we have our users. And if I look at the users, I can include myself. We want to basically work from everywhere. We want to be flexible, and also we've before COVID, we've been put on planes, sent over to across the Atlantic, and we need to work with the same experience as that we had before. And of course, then what we try to do is also try to get a simpler, more efficient security model across the complete stack of solutions that we have. Now, what we try to do there is we try to give, as VMware, the right digital foundation to enable both the reliability at scale, but even in a SMB world as Belgium, we need to make sure that the business is being run reliable, but that we also can have rapid evolution or rapid innovation, and of course without disrupting what's happening today, because we don't change as such a good thing, but we don't want to harm the existing operations. Now, the question that we ask ourselves is what is your digital foundation, and how are you going to your customers and saying, okay, this is the digital foundation that you need, dear Mr. Customer, in your environment. So for this, I took an ancient foundation that we know for quite some time, but it gives us a good view, or it's a good metaphor to talk about it. And I want to switch to the basically the vision and the strategy slide of VMware. And this vision and strategy slide I will go over rather quickly, but we will go in depth into the strategy and the vision the next couple of slides. Now, when I joined VMware, it's about 4 years ago. I had my laptop with me. I had my private laptop with me because most of the time, when you join a new company, you assume that everything is ready. But yeah, sometimes there is a hiccup. And to be honest, the same within VMware. I can't say that wasn't true. But the good thing was that I had a helpful colleague that said, "This is the URL you need to go to. This is the password you got from through text, or the username and password you got through a text message. You just type it in here, and you can normally go ahead." And after 20 minutes, I could go with my own laptop to the applications of VMware through a secure portal, basically. And we want to make sure that within VMware we have any device possible to go to those applications. But of course, if you look at those applications, the world is changing outside, right? It's no longer only traditional applications. It's no longer, or it's not only SaaS applications. It's not only cloud native applications. We have different flavors of applications. Let's call them vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry. We have different applications at this moment on the shelf and running within our businesses. But as a user, you need to make sure that you can go through to all those applications without any extra login or whatever. You need to have it seamless through every single device. Now, of course, if you look at that application, we also need to run it on any cloud. And if I look at the any cloud, this vision is being launched somewhere in 2012, where we first launched the SDDC vision and the software-defined data center vision. And if I look at this slide hasn't changed apart from the logos that got fancier, but this slide hasn't changed since. We still want to make sure that we can connect your private network or your private data center to something public, and move VMs or workloads, if you want to call it, from A to B without any disruption, without any problem. Now, if I look at this, we also have the edge, we also have the telco. I think this is maybe less relevant for the people in the room. But if you look at the right side of the slide, we need to make sure that we can connect from any device to any application to any cloud, with the security being built in to every single layer of our experience, I would say. Now, if I look at this, what is key is the consistency. The consistency in the story is key. And I will take you through the complete message as from this moment on. Now, if I look at the consistency, I think we can have change, but nothing is as hard to, for example, automate if we have a non-standardized, non-consistent environment, because then we have all loose ends left and right, that we need to make sure that we don't forget, or we keep the loose end that we will never be able to, for example, automate it. But also from an operations point of view, it's very difficult. But I will come back to that a little bit later on. Now, I want to make sure that we talk about the application first, and I think that is the switch that VMware has been making for quite some time. We are now more into the application space down than from the infrastructure space up. Now, if I look at this, I think I have a very good question for you and for your customers. What is your application evolution, I would say? And if I look at the question that has been on the screen here, we did a survey, and 78% of the people said they would start improving their application portfolio, and that is a top priority. Now, if I look at this on the other side of the slide, less than half of them made progress in the year they said this was a top priority, which is of course a very difficult one. We have different applications being spun up, but this is the reality of today. And if I look at this, the any application, we need to make sure that we have traditional applications, and we can now make the shift to, for example, a cloud native application that is completely, the architecture in the cloud native space is completely different than what we had in a traditional space. For example, different services are now being put in a container, into a bubble that has its own purpose of living, that can scale up, scale down, that is very agile in the way we are doing this. And if I look at this, yeah, it's completely different than a traditional application, because at this moment, traditional application is being monolithic, is being very robust, being working for years or maybe decades, and potentially the question is also, are they going away, and is everything going to shift to cloud native? The answer is possibly no. For example, if we look at banking applications, we will those guys are always keeping the records, always or most of the time keeping records on some sort of mainframe or a very high resilient application. They will not shift it overnight to something cloud native. So for the time being, you and me will be checking our bank accounts on our cell phone, in the end, in the back end, on a mainframe, for example. But the front end will be differentiating, or it will be a differentiating factor for most of the applications. Now, what we try to do is also simplify the multi-cloud operations, and we need to make sure that our infrastructure is ready to host the modern applications. Of course, we don't want to introduce a second or a third or a fourth management UI. No, we want to make sure that we can centrally manage the complete environment through clouds, through clusters. It doesn't really matter. Of course, then if we then look at the speed, and we need to make sure that we ship software faster. That's the differentiating factor today into the market. We need to make sure that the velocity is there to have faster software pipeline, I would say, or supply chain. And of course, the problem that we have then is that two worlds that were not working together now all of a sudden need to work together, because they're now running their applications on the platform that somebody else is running. So the operations guys are seeing things they never saw, and the dev guys now experience things they never have experienced before. For example, if I look at the development guys, those guys were used to have, well, especially in the cloud native space, building, for example, high availability inside the application. Why? Because VMware has, for example, high availability and vMotion for years now. So why not leverage what the infrastructure has to offer, and you can, as a developer, can work with what we have today. Now, our offering that we have there is we can now build, run, and manage those new applications with what we call VMware Tanzu. And what we have there is also, we basically deliver a consistent developer experience. For the developer, it doesn't really matter where they are programming. It doesn't matter where they are coding. If they are programming or coding in your data center or somewhere in the cloud or somewhere natively in the cloud, they shouldn't care. They just are able to code while IT is controlling, for example, security in the backend. Now, that's about the apps. And if I look at the clouds, the cloud strategy, we've been talking about cloud for quite some time. If I look at the clouds, there is a gigantic evolution within the strategy, right? If I look at the strategy from our customers, I see people taking good or bad some decisions that they say we want to go 100% cloud, and all of a sudden they see some of the applications are not that easy to port to the cloud. It's a little bit like putting something round through a square hole. It's very, very difficult to do, but if you push hard enough, potentially it will go through, but in the end it will never feel good, right? Also, I see customers saying we will never go to cloud. It's a minority, but some people say we will never go to cloud. Most of the majority of the people say we will not push something round to a square hole or something square to a round hole. We will see and look which application fits best on which cloud. And I think that is the that is the way forward. And I think that is the way forward in the way that we can combine and can move workloads through the different chains, basically, right? And if I look at this, we have the any application, and we or the any cloud, sorry. We have been used to having a private cloud for a decade, for more than a decade, for basically the lifetime of our company or our customers' company. Now, the public cloud has been knocking at the door at all of our customers. Want to use it natively? Do you want to move workloads from A to B without interference? Possibly. But what we need to have or create is a, how would I say, common language on both sides. And what we have in the private cloud, everybody knows us from vSphere. vSphere has been around for over 20 years. But of course, we still have networking, we still have storage. And if we attach ourselves to the hardware, that means that we always have a dependency in your own data center, because there is potentially, for example, a LUN on storage that is still provisioned to the VMs that we are running our business on. So if we want to make sure that we can have a portable VM or a portable workload, we need to detach our VMs or our workloads from the hardware underneath. Now, that's why we have been coming up with the SDDC story back in 2012. And what the idea behind the SDDC story is to basically detach everything from the hardware underneath. If I look at that, and we're quite successful with that. For example, one of the first steps that we took to detaching or a new operational model for storage, for example, was what we called virtual volumes. But we also now have vSAN, we have NSX for networking, and now we can basically move a workload from A to B without interference. Now, of course, if we detached everything on the one end, we need to make sure that on the other hand, if we offer the workloads at that end, for example, let's call it AWS, that they understand what we are doing. And at this moment, what we have been doing is a complete evolution, I would say, within VMware and within the world. Is we now have created all the different entry points in the major clouds and also within the cloud providers, where they have a common language, where they are using ESX, NSX, vSAN, and so on, in the cloud of for example, a Google or an IBM or Azure. Right? Even our local service providers can now offer services where customers can just bring their VMs and see what's the best fit for their environment, I would say. Now, I promise you that consistency in this case would be the key, and I think consistency for the workloads is, I think, achieved if we have the consistent infrastructure layer across different clouds. Now, of course, we want to make sure that we have an operational model that fits that infrastructure. And then we have tools that now can create a visibility, that create operational models, automation as well, through a consistent operational model across the cloud. Of course, we want to make sure that we have security being pushed in there. We have governance of VMs. For example, if we have an automated rollout of a VM or a container, we need to make sure that there is a governance attached to it. For example, if it's a developer and it's not used anymore, that we reclaim the space. And if it's in the public cloud, that we basically bring down the cost of the invoice per month or per annum. And then, of course, the container management. Now, how do we get the data from A to B? Because that's, of course, the difficult question. At this moment, we need to make sure that we have a possibility to bring data from A to B. And let's maybe start with what I would say a software-defined one, which is then more from the edge to the data center, whatever the data center is. But if you look, for example, a software-defined one is optimization of what we have today on our accountant bills is for example MPLS, which is still very expensive. We need to make sure that we can optimize it, because at this moment the internet lines potentially are better or even as secure as that we have. Of course, the uptime of MPLS is maybe better, but why not do it through, for example, 3G or 5G soon? So maybe we can now have a software-defined one where we can choose what's best for that application at that moment when it needs to connect, for example, to your own data center. But also we need to make sure that the routing, the IPS, IDS, the firewalling, load balancing, everything is being taken care of in the data center and across clouds. So we need to make sure that we have a possibility to create and to connect our applications and data everywhere. And with VCN, so VCN is our VMware Cloud Network. What we do there is we basically have a software-defined networking layer that offers all those different infrastructure capabilities in software. And it's called NSX. We also acquired AV networks for load balancing. So we have a complete suite that can now basically create that connectivity between the different applications, data, and different entry points, I would say, of data. Also coming to telco, for example, also soon we will have 5G. There are multiple major telco players choosing for VMware to basically get their network done. Maybe one thing, if I look at containers, if we have all those microservices, we spin up and spin down microservices every 5 seconds if you want. We spin up containers every minute. We push in new functions into our applications every minute of the day. Problem is that at that moment, if you look at what happens in the backend, there needs to be connectivity, for example. You can't do that manually. That needs to be automated, right? And if you have it in software, you can now easily automate all those things as well. So all these things now are being automated within the software-defined networking. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit and want to trigger some questions in your head. And I think especially when we are now in the times that we do these virtual events, but also more and more video calls, more and more different ways of working. Yeah, which device do you want to use? Which is your preferred device? Do I need to choose one device to work on? In the VMware vision, the idea is no. The idea is that you can choose whichever device you want. Do you want to use a Chromebook? Do you want to have an iPad? Do you want to have your iPhone or your MacBook or your Windows or whatever? Fine, it will work. Which device do you prefer? Whatever device you want to work on. Also, if you want to make sure that the possibility is where to work, and as I said earlier in the slides, is working still bound to a location? Is working from home is then bound to a location? Remote working is still bound to a location because it's remote from something. So I would rather introduce it as a flexible way of working. A train station can be remote office. Your car can be a remote office. A gas station somewhere on the E40 can be a remote office. So for me, where do you want? Yeah, where do you prefer to work is a flexible answer. But of course, that brings some questions to IT. How do they keep control? And I want to give you an extra story that I've had recently, and I want to give you two. Is that one of my colleagues during COVID, she was about to start in VMware the 1st of April. So she decided to go a month to her home on the island of Corsica, and all of a sudden, halfway through March, the Belgian government said we are now in lockdown. Airports are being closed down. Everything is being closed down. So she didn't have a way to come back. The only thing that still was going was cargo, and the cargo could potentially have her laptop in there. So what VMware did is we shipped her laptop to Corsica, and she started working on the day that was agreed in her contract. She started working from Corsica and worked there for 3 months, and then came back home and continued working. This is the flexibility, or where do you prefer to work on which device, whatever device is possible. And same thing with me. I basically switched my laptop mid COVID from a 3-year-old MacBook to a new MacBook without any hands of IT. I just had a clean factory installed MacBook coming to my home, um, added my credentials, got linked to Workspace ONE, and basically I was productive. This is the end user experience, of course, and I have an immediate productivity from anywhere with any application or with any access to any application that VMware is offering me. But of course, in the end, IT needs to have a way that they can manage my device. They need to make sure that everything on my laptop is still okay. They need to make sure that, for example, there is a carbon black agent pushed to my laptop. That is all being done in the process of enrolling that laptop. But after an hour, I was migrated to a new laptop. Um, the good thing is that it is one unified platform that will simplify the delivery and the management of any application on any device. And so this is the way where IT can keep control of a secure and simple way of offering the experience to the employees. Now, if I look at this is the any device, I'm at this moment looking at 4 devices in my home office. I have my iPad, my MacBook, my iPhone next to me, and potentially I even can count my watch with me. So it doesn't really matter which device. Of course, you need to pick the device that is best fitted for you. I will not do a Word document on my watch. That's something that is potentially not the right gear or the right device to do that work. Now, if I look at this, we had the any application, we had the any cloud, we now had the any device, and then I came to the security part, and I want to get the brain fluids flowing. How many security products are in your environment? And in your environment, I mean within your customer's environment. And think about that for 5 seconds. It is not one. It is not two. It's potentially over 20, 30, 40, maybe even up to 70 products. But all those products come with a certain USP, a selling point, unique selling point. They are protecting to this, and the other one is protecting to something else. Now, of course, if I look at this, it's a very hard area to play in. But from within VMware, we think we are in a very good zone to enforce security. And I would like to welcome you to the Goldilocks zone. And before you go into Google, I've put the meaning under the welcoming of the Goldilocks zone. Now, what I mean with the Goldilocks zone is basically the area where NASA is looking for, or the space agencies are looking for potential life outside of Earth. And what they are looking for, and for the fast readers, you will immediately see it. They're looking for a place that is not too hot, not too cold, because otherwise we would burn or we would freeze. But we are looking for a zone or a place where it's just hot enough, yet not too cold, to have potential life. And potential life starts from what we believe at this moment from liquid water, right? Liquid water where there is potential life inside the water, and from that moment on, we could potentially survive. This is the Goldilocks zone, and I think from within VMware we are the best fitted to enforce security. If I look at what the Goldilocks zone means, for example, is that if we have a VM or a container running on a platform, what a hacker would do is once they enter the VM, they would immediately attack the security assets that are inside that VM or that container. If you do that traditionally, you're done, because potentially then at that moment your security area is being compromised, and a security threat can spread over your network without any problem. Now, imagine that we have something in between the infrastructure layer and the VM that also understands the infrastructure and the application. And we, for 20 years, we had VMware tools. VMware tools has been installed to basically monitor applications, stuff like that. But what if we could now use it, because it's not inside your VM, it's on the outside. What now if we could use it to learn how an application behaves? What if you could potentially learn um, what is good behavior and what is bad behavior? And what now if we have, for example, an agent that can report back and say, "Hey guys, this is happening within my application. This isn't normal behavior. I think." The hacker attacks the agent, and of course we see that this is something that we now need to take care of. Of course, if we need to take care of it in a manual world, we need to, yeah, basically shut it down, or move it to a quarantined area. Now, imagine that you have a software-defined networking solution that can do that automatically. Well, guess what? With what we have in our portfolio, we can do that. So we are now in the Goldilocks zone where we are not too close to the threat, not yet too far from the threat, to basically enforce the security and to make sure that our applications being kept alive during the life cycle. Now, this is what we call the intrinsic security. And if I look at this, it's not only on the endpoint that we need to do. It's not only in the network; it's across the complete stack that you need to do it. So we've touched the security a little bit in the previous slide, but if you build security into the infrastructure, we understand now what we are having in our environment. We understand the context, and we understand the devices, the servers, and the workloads basically that are being protected. You can now protect the endpoints to the access of the complete organization, and then you can unify basically your operational silos by centralized analytics and centralized management. And I think that makes VMware a very interesting company to look at if you want to yeah, go to customers and talk about a complete environment end to end on in a software defined world. Now we can basically meet the changing needs of our customers and partners. We could optimize it. We could optimize the operations and the speed, the go-to-market speed, and of course, then strengthen that with what we have in a security world. And I think that is basically creating that underlying foundation that enables the success of a digital business. So, with that, I would like to get you to one of the last slides where we basically have the portfolio at a glance, and I think we touched most of it. We touched most of this of the products and the solutions that we have. Last year, we bought Pivotal, which is now being transitioned into the Tanzu app modernization portfolio. We had Digital Workspace, Workspace ONE, VMware Horizon for quite some time. The intrinsic security now is being handled most of the offerings in the Carbon Black area, which we also integrated last year. Then we have the multi-cloud, so multi-cloud VCF, VMC, and VMC is the VMware Cloud on AWS, but we also have the Google VMware engine. We also have AVS, which is the Azure VMware Solutions offering, where we have created that common language across the different clouds. But of course, if you are a local service provider and you want to have you want to basically provide services to your end users, if you can do it on a VMware, 80% is still on a VMware platform. So if we could do that, that is basically the idea behind that. And of course, then we have the virtual cloud network, which is most of it is in under the NSX umbrella, but of course we also have multiple other products that we can use. For example, in the space of the multi-cloud, we also have vRealize. vRealize is our automation operations portfolio. We can help our customers modernize those applications that they can modernize through VMware Pivotal Labs. We can optimize everything that is in the one. So, for example, let's say your customer has multiple shops. We now make sure that the lines through the data center are being optimized. That's something we can help you with. That brings me to my thank you slide, and maybe not sure if there are questions asked. You can always ask the questions in the chat window. With that, I would already like to thank you, and we still have plenty of time to do some of the questions. So I would like to open it up for questions. Okay, so I just received some info that there is no questions asked. So if there are no questions, I think we could conclude the session. If anything, my details are on the slides. You can always reach out to me. That was me. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And if you have some spare time, maybe you should check out the podcast on the slides, just where we talk through the whole of this strategy and vision in a little bit more depth. So thank you very much and enjoy your day. Bye bye.